Hello and welcome back again to our little project of soldering the DSO138 oscilloscope. Last time we managed to solder in all the resistors, a few HF chokes, a crystal and 2 diodes. Today there will be quite a bit of more work to do. Taking a look at the user manual. Next up is the USB socket, the tact switches and a whole bunch of ceramic capacitors, as well as the LED. And if we have some time left, we'll also do the pin header and the transistors and the regulators. And we leave the rest for the last part then probably. Okay, the most laborious part will probably be to solder in the ceramic capacitors. You have to check their values, of course, that they match up. There's a bunch of documentation online available that tells you how to read the code, and I pre-sorted the capacitors off screen here, so you should take your time to decode all the values on the capacitors and check them with the instruction manual, which ones you need first and how many of those there are. Most are ones, then we have 11.1 microfarads and 2 each of 120 picofarads and 22 picofarads. But I'll show this again when we come to the actual capacitors. For now we will start off with the USB socket, which will be probably a little bit tricky because it has to be mounted here, and you have both the 5 pins that you need as well as the four mounting pins and the 5 USB pins here. So this is quite a bit of soldering work, plus the data pins are really tiny. So let's see how this will work out. Okay, so far we've got the tact switches and also the USB socket in, which was indeed a little bit tricky because the data pins are very close to each other. I will have to double check those again before we connect any power to this. Anyway, next up will be the capacitors, and as I said, you need to closely double check the values on those. Luckily there are not that many different capacitors here, and they should be pretty easy to place onto the board. We'll begin with the larger ones and then work to the other ones. So let's see how that goes. Alright, the capacitors are all in now. Let's hope this actually is the correct order. I checked, but you never know. If my multimeter actually had a setting for measuring capacitance, I could check with that again. So maybe that's an advice for you. Spend a few more bucks on a multimeter that has capacitance check inbuilt as well. Okay, so that's that. The LED will be up next, as well as the pin header and the transistors. I think those few parts we do in one go, and then we take a look at what this board looks like and what else we still have to do. So let's go. Okay, so the regulators and the transistors are all done. Those were 4 different ones, so you really have to check if you got the right one. Pretty important, otherwise probably everything will burn up or simply doesn't work. Next up, still we have some time left, will be the capacitor trimmers and the power inductor, as well as the electrolytic capacitors. I will save the switches and pin headers for next time. With the electrolytic capacitors, well, we only have one size, so we don't need to sort them, but you have to take care of the polarity, of course, in opposed to the ceramic capacitors. These actually have a polarity, but it's clearly marked both on the capacitor as well as on the board, so make sure that you get that right. The trimmers and the power inductors are not that problematic. However, the trimmers will have their shape outlined on the PCB board as well, so you can't do anything wrong here. Okay, let's go. Yes, those were all the electrolytic capacitors, the capacitor trimmers, and also the single induction up here. So all that's left is basically all the pin headers and the connectors for the TFT screen, the sockets, and a few switches. We will put this together in the next part. Also, we will then try to power this up. Fingers crossed that this will work, or otherwise we see some lovely blue smoke, and probably we will have learned something, namely to do a better job or to buy the pre-soldered kit. Anyway, I hope this was a bit instructional, and let's see if we can make this work in the next part. So thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe if you want. And see you next time. Thanks for watching.